A former federal regulator under the Trump administration announcing he will now head Binance US starting on May 1st. Please welcome the former comptroller of the currency and soon-to-be CEO of Binance US, Brian Brooks. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, Christine. Thanks very much.
Big news. So why did you decide to take on this role, and what would be your top priorities going into Binance US?
Well, listen, I mean, you take the role for obvious reasons, which is this is the company that's most likely to give, the biggest incumbent Coinbase a run for its money. It's the best opportunity to build a fully compliant but product diversified crypto platform in the U.S. And it's a company that has been, revenue and profit positive since day one because of the resourcing it got at the inception. So it's an incredible platform to come and launch things in the U.S. the right way. There's nothing more exciting to me than that.
Brian, welcome back. What's the reporting structure with Binance US? Who do you report to?
Well, I have a board of directors, which I will be a member of, and I report to the board.
Who else is on the board?
Well, the board is obviously the founder of the company and another person. It's a private company, so we don't necessarily go into the governance structure. But I can tell you that one of the things we'll be looking at is bringing in U.S. investors, potentially adding 1 or 2 seats to the board over time. As I say, the reason the company was founded in the first place was not, and let me just dispel any misunderstandings right at the outset, was not to be an arm of Binance.com. It was just the opposite. The reason was a recognition that the U.S. market and the U.S. regulatory structure is really different from markets elsewhere. And there has to be a freestanding company over here with its own leadership to capture that opportunity. So to be clear, Binance US is not a subsidiary of Binance.com. It does get to license technology from that company. But we're a standalone business that's going to operate in the U.S. the way that U.S. companies have to operate.
Catherine Coley is the current CEO of Binance US. I believe she's also on the board. Is anything changing? Will she still be on the board? Do we know what will happen to her?
Yeah, look, I mean, Coley has done a great job, I think, getting a company launched in a bootstrapped way. Obviously, the company scaled rapidly, and, I think we thank her for her leadership for sure. She's somebody I've been on panels with and have worked with in the past, and I think she's a great leader in the field. So, we're going to have a leadership transition here, which happens all the time, by the way, in scaling tech companies, where at a certain point, at a certain point of maturation, you bring in additional layers of leadership and talent, which is what we're doing today.
Will she still be on the board?
I think probably not, but I think some of those things are under discussion. Not because she hasn't done a terrific job, but simply because you don't simply add seats to boards. Generally speaking, You want to keep these things small and nimble.
Catherine Coley was very.
Did she step down? Did she step down?
She'll step down on May 1st. That's the transition period that you probably saw in the press announcement.
Catherine was very outspoken on diversity issues in the crypto space, especially with Coinbase when they had several employees, saying that they were being discriminated against and that women and employees of color were not getting equal pay. I wonder, where do you stand on diversity issues?
Well, Christine, I'm really glad you asked that because, we can talk about the company and then we can also talk about the industry. And, I think one of the core missions of the industry is bringing underrepresented communities into wealth creation in a way that the banking system hasn't. But on the company side, let me just say, I have led the diversity initiatives at multiple companies. I was the chairman of the Diversity Advisory Council of Fannie Mae, one of the most diverse companies in America for a long time. And when I was at Coinbase, we became the first Silicon Valley tech startup to join the Leadership Council on Legal Diversity, which is the most important lawyers organization promoting minority hiring and minority advancement in the legal profession. So rest assured, diversity is going to be one of the hallmarks of Binance US under my leadership. And that's something I've cared about for a long time. What I always say is you need to measure me based on our results and our numbers, and you can watch that to judge me on that.
Getting back real quickly to the question of the board of directors, you said obviously the founder is on the board. Where is Binance located? Where exactly is Binance, the parent company, located? When you call them up and somebody answers on the other side of the phone, where are they located?
Well, I'm not sure that you call crypto companies on the phone. I mean, when I worked at Coinbase, we didn't have phones. We all have cell phones.
Okay, when you email, where is it coming from?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Where is it coming from?
Email goes where it goes on a distributed set of servers. I mean, look, it's a great question. I'm not trying to debate it, but I mean, look, as you know, Brian Armstrong. Well, just hang on a second. I mean, so Brian Armstrong announced months and months ago that Coinbase would no longer have a headquarters and would be remote first. And I think they saw that partly as a response to COVID and partly as a hiring advantage, so they could take advantage of talent anywhere. I can tell you where my company is headquartered. Just give me a moment. My company is headquartered in the Presidio at 1 Letterman Drive in San Francisco. So that's where Binance US, the company I will lead, is headquartered. Binance.com, a company I don't work at, I think has migrated its location and its employee base to several different places over the years. And the answer is I don't know that there's even an answer to the question any more than there is at Coinbase.
Well, I mean, would you know like
Coinbase,
where their servers
how specifically will you compete against Coinbase? Like, Coinbase obviously has a very strong first mover advantage. It's seen as, easy to use and mainstream friendly. So and how will you compete against them? What will your advantages be? And where do you think will be difficult to compete against them?
Well, look, I mean, Coinbase is an amazing company, and I learned as much there as I've learned in any job I've ever had in my life. But I would tell you a couple things. First of all, competing on price in a financial asset class is a really important thing to do. Look at what Robinhood did to Charles Schwab. And so I think one of the reasons that Binance is the fastest scaling crypto company, having achieved 2 million users in 20 months of its life cycle, is precisely because it has a very robust matching engine and very low fees compared to Coinbase, its main competitor in the U.S. But the other thing you'll see over time, I think, is we will quickly migrate into more value-add services and be a more diversified platform of crypto, not just crypto asset trading, but of other kinds of services, based on our ability to access licenses and to achieve compliance very quickly. So I think we'll be a broader company over time, and we'll have stickiness because of better pricing.
So, Brian, Tether is an important part of the crypto ecosystem. Was that something you looked at when you were at the OCC, and does it concern you now as CEO of Binance US?
Well, Tether was one of the things we thought about at the OCC when we put out our 2 guidance letters on stablecoins. And you probably saw at the very end of my time at the OCC, there was an interagency group that put out a broader set of principles on stablecoins. And the point was to say, hey, unlike Tether at a certain point, right, we want to be very clear that going forward, stablecoins are backed by a certain kind of fiat assets, not just dollar-denominated assets, right? Not long-dated corporate debt and junk bonds, but things like short-term treasury securities and bank deposits. And I think Tether obviously has evolved over time, but in its early days, one of its challenges was the assets being held in its reserves. That's something I'm very focused on. Obviously, we want to make sure that assets we trade are safe and are as represented. You have to have customer trust here. Again, that's one thing Coinbase has showed, and we'll work on that.
Would it be in review?
Well, I don't want to say it'd be in review. I mean, I'm not there yet, but I would just say there's a set of standards that U.S. regulations, some of which I wrote, prescribe, and things that don't comply with those regulations don't have a place on the platform. So I would just say that'll be our touchstone.
So just following up on Lawrence's question, I think even if you would contest this categorization that, Binance is not located anywhere, there generally is that perception in the United States, right? That, even Coinbase kind of listed this in their S1, that like exchanges like Binance are sort of seen as like above regulation or above the rules. And I think some people, there's a lack of trust in Binance, basically. And I'm just curious how much of a problem you think that is and how you'll address that.
Well, so I guess the first thing I just need to be super clear about, and I realize nomenclature is everything, but Binance is a company, Binance.com is a company. They have the same founder, sort of like how Twitter and Square have the same founder, and yet nobody thinks Twitter and Square are the same company or that Twitter's headquarters says anything about where Square is located. Binance.com is not this company, okay? Binance.com is a different company with a different board of directors, different owners, different products and services than Binance.com has. And so, when people come out and they say things like, well, there's a reputational issue, I don't know how much of that's real and how much of that is something that 2 fierce competitors might say about each other. I can tell you from the Binance US perspective, under my leadership, we have enormous admiration for Coinbase. We will be a fast follower of them and their trust model for sure. But if there's any issue there between the 2 companies, that's a one-way issue, not coming from our side.
But Brian, you can see the confusion if, of course, they both have the name Binance in it. I mean, it's not like Square calls itself Twitter Lite or Twitter.us. It's called, it has a separate name and a separate board and a separate,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I mean, this is why it's good that people like you have these sorts of shows, so we can have some dialogue to educate people that this is its own platform, right, with its own products and its own leadership. And all I can tell you is, if there has been a question about trustworthiness coming from any place other than competitors, and that remains to be seen, but if there has been, that ends on my watch. Okay, one of the things I'm here to do is reach out to regulators and fix that if it needs fixing.
Where's Binance US's servers versus where Binance itself, Binance.com, where are their servers? Are they in the same place? Are they the same servers, or are they different servers?
Yeah, they're not the same servers. You can rest assured that before I took this job, I did my diligence on all of these things. So look, U.S. persons' data will be housed in the U.S. The technology, while licensed from Binance.com, are things that are controlled and operated in the U.S. So all of those things will be done the way that any customer of a U.S. business would expect.
Just to zoom out for a second, what do you think is the future of centralized exchanges? Do you think that centralized exchanges are at some point going to be a thing of the past and will be overtaken by DeFi and decentralized exchanges?
This is just my personal view on that, but I do think that over time that will be the case. I mean, the reason that centralized exchanges exist is to provide an on-ramp from people who mostly have lived in the fiat economy into the crypto economy, and there has to be a bridge that allows people to migrate into that to that world. That eventually will change, and you were just asking Hester about her view of central bank digital currencies and stable coins. She said a lot of the things I believe, but once stable coins are a fully baked, fully mature asset class, and there's less of a reason to move back and forth between your bank and your crypto wallet, at that point, the role of exchanges will change. And I think they'll be more like technology platforms than on-ramps, the way that you see today.
So basically, one day centralized exchanges will no longer exist?
Well, I don't want to say that they won't exist, because I think the companies will have enormous brand loyalty from the customers that use them. But I'm just saying what they do will look and feel a little bit different. If you think about the way that Google has migrated from search as a profit engine to search as a driver of people into online, and now they own lots and lots of other profitable businesses, I think that's likely the path that crypto exchanges will make. We will start tokenizing real assets. We will start allowing futures markets and derivatives markets to exist, and other things that now you have to go back and forth between fiat and crypto. That going back and forth part should stop over time.
Mm-hmm. Well, Brian, congratulations on the new role. We look forward to seeing how Binance US progresses in the US economy. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Super excited. Thanks for having me.